Today, I'm going to teach you how to identify coffee extraction defects by looking at your coffee puck. Alright, so bear with me, we're going to get a bit sloppy on our normal puck preparation. So we're going to try and identify the 4 things that people struggle with when they're extracting their coffee. So I'm going to get myself a grind straight up. We've got our hot handle, clean and dry, as we would still normally recommend. And we're just going to be a little bit sloppy. We're going to pop in that grind. It hasn't really filled the basket very well. I'm going to give it a little knock off to the side, and we're going to give it a tamp. So nothing really standardized there at all. Let's have a look at how this coffee performs. So firstly, you can see it did go quite fast, and now that has restricted back to what people refer as a mouse tail. But that mouse tail isn't actually very solid. You can see it's wobbling a little bit left to right. Those big bubbles that just came out, that is where water is going through fast through the coffee, and essentially it's causing channeling. And channeling is the biggest issue that we all seem to want to fix to get a better extraction. Now, I'll put that coffee aside because we're going to look at the coffee puck. Now, if we have a look here, you can see clearly that because the coffee wasn't distributed very well and there was more coffee on the left-hand side and not the right-hand side, water was lazy. It goes down the least path of resistance, the path of least resistance. So much of that water was just going straight down through this channel that's been created on the edge of the puck, and it's under extracting the coffee immensely. Now, we can also look at the actual puck itself, and you can see that it's just moving around a little bit. It's not very well compacted. There's different densities on this side, it's quite firm, and this side is quite soft and sloppy. So we haven't got an even bed of water going evenly through that coffee at the same time. And we saw that because the water came out fast, it would have gone straight down that hole on the left, and then it started to maybe get a bit of the water going down the other side where it started to slow down. But that only happens up until about midway of the shot, because once that gets total saturation, the whole puck has expanded and lifted, water can flow pretty much freely through it wherever it wants and speed right up. And that's what happens towards the end of the shot. You tend to see a very pale, fast-flowing and wobbly liquid which isn't getting a lot of those lovely flavors out of the coffee when that happens. So the second thing I want to cover is cracks in your coffee puck. Now, we might not think we've got any cracks in that coffee bed when we're tamping it, but there are a couple of things that you really need to think about. So I'm going to get my grind as well, and we're going to use a manual tamper, because there's a few things that people forget about when they're doing this process. We've got an automatic tamper which is going to standardize a lot of things. So if you're using a manual tamper, there's some things that we can help you with. You've got your coffee bed in there. We're going to just distribute that a little bit, give a bit of a tap, and a lot of people want to just give this an absolute heavy press and go really firm on it. Now the problem is, this is a 58mm basket and this is a 58mm tamper, but there is actually a gap between the two. There's about 3mm. So if you go and buy an average tamper and an average basket and you tamp it, the outside 3mm is actually going to be where that water wants to flow because it hasn't been tamped. The water will go down the outside edge and extract the coffee all the way around the outside of that basket. And the other thing I want you to stop doing is hitting the edge of your basket, because watch what happens. When we've got our coffee in here, if I just polish this nicely, which is okay, I don't mind if those grinds get polished, have a look what happens down the edge of the basket when I give this a hit. Can you see that that crack has formed? Even over here, the whole puck now has been lifted away from the edge of the basket. So I urge you not to hit the edge of the basket. Doesn't matter if you repolish it, there's still going to be a crack or a gap all the way around the outside edge. So let's have a look at how that's going to perform. There you go, you can see the same things happen. The water came out, the actual liquid was running like a river, it was quite bumpy, and it's gone around the outside. Now we're getting this mouse tail, which is just super thin. It's very wobbly and the color isn't very nice. It's not really rich, it's just staying one color all the way through. Let's have a look at the coffee puck again. Wow, okay. You can see that the coffee has expanded a fair way, okay, because it is fresh coffee. We've allowed room for that water to come in and expand, but you can see a wormhole down the side there. And if you look around the whole edge of the basket, you can see that the water actually curves along the surface and down the edge of the basket. So it's flowed all the way around there. There's a little bit of a channel happening over this side as well. But once that starts, it'll just keep sucking the coffee from the top of it down that edge. That's a really good identifier there to know that that has channeled down the edge of your basket. On close inspection, there are 5 holes that have been created around the outside of that basket just by tapping the edge. I'm going to look closely here and give it a bit of a press. Let's see if this basket, or the puck I should say, moves as a whole puck. Okay, it's not moving as a whole puck, but when that water goes down the outside, it can actually lift the whole puck right up, which is even worse. That's a floating puck. And that will basically mean that the water's going all the way around the outside and not extracting any of the coffee on the inside. So for all of you tappers out there, that is a no. Please stop and tell your mates, stop doing it. So we've covered wormholes and channeling and cracks in your puck. Now we're going to talk about a floating puck. So let's get some grind. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to grind a little bit lower in our basket. So a lot of people sort of get a scoop and put it in a basket and tamp it, and they think that's the right amount of coffee. And not having the right amount of coffee in a basket can cause a whole range of issues. So get our handle nice and hot and dry. I'm going to pop that in, give it a bit of a tap, and just a little bit of puck preparation here. Just trying to get it out flat and level. And I'll go back to using the automatic tamper as well. Let's pop that in. And let's watch this shot. There you go. So you can see it's definitely come out really fast and then come in quite fine. Now, it's just a constant stream. It's not a proper mouse tail. The water flowing through there, consistent at the same speed all the way through, and it's definitely under extracting this coffee. And I'll show you what this puck looks like. You can see that it's lifted right up to the seam here. It hasn't actually done a lot of things. It's got some channeling down the side here, but when we press the puck, you can see these big air pockets inside here. So what's actually happening is the water is going through so fast in that coffee bed that it's creating its own air pockets and then lifting up that whole puck as it starts to expand, just like a bloom would happen in any other brewing device. And when you can have a look at that puck afterwards, sometimes if you let it dry a little bit more, you can actually push that coffee bed and the whole thing will tilt because it essentially has created a gap between the basket and the bottom of the coffee. Now the other telltale sign of that is something I can't demonstrate because we've actually got our shot length set for the right amount of water. But when you actually run too much water through there, the end of that coffee puck will definitely be fast, pale and super wobbly. It won't be any sort of mouse tail or a continued stream. So keep your eye out for that, and that will obviously bring a lot more paleness into the end tail of your shot. So not having the right amount of coffee in your basket can cause this issue, and also the other ones from point 1 and point 2 as well. So the easy answer for the challenges we're facing in these number 1, number 2 and 3 coffee puck defects is to go finer. So on the grinder up here, we're at 3 at the moment. I'm gonna wind right down to, I reckon, about 2, because I want to get more restriction. I want to increase the time on my extraction. All of these times are very quick at the moment. I need to grind off a bit of that so that we can push out the old coarse grind and get down to some fine grind. And that was quite a fast shot before. I did miss the time, I'm sorry, but most of them have been around 20 seconds for our full normal. I'm going to now grind off a finer grind and show you what happens when you can have 2 finer grind. Okay, we're not going to do anything too crazy with our puck preparation here as well. We'll just level it out a little bit and we'll use the automatic tamper. Okay, so you can see the time is taking a lot longer. We're out to 8 seconds before that started to drop, and it's really drippy. It's only coming out one side of the coffee puck. It's definitely not coming out both. There you go. Now it's started to make its way through. Perhaps there's some really big channeling happening there as well. Very thick, very drippy, very molassesy. We're already at 30 seconds, 31 seconds, and we've barely got any liquid there as well. It's now starting to open up in a shot a little bit. Now if we keep running this for the full volume that we should have, because our water is preset, we're going to start to get all this over extraction. You see how wobbly that shot's going? See how it's really starting to get a bit of a corkscrew to it? And it's just really opening up really crazy at the end of that. What do we end up in a time? 58 seconds of extraction. The first part of the shot started to look like we wanted to, but we got all this pale bitterness on the end of it. Now let's have a look at the coffee puck as well. Look at that. It is so high. It is very wet and sloppy. You can see that it's well above the basket ring line, and you can see that that whole shot will actually push down. Okay, so it's got so fine that it stayed a really big mass and lifted as well, but it just didn't allow us to get the even flow of water through that puck. There's a lot of fines that are in the bottom of that basket, and they're probably slowing it down, but as the water starts to get a longer length through that coffee bed, it's really starting to get some more channeling, speed up, but also if it was a low dose, you'd have this big sloppy mess and a pool on top there, which is just not allowing you to get anything that you want. It's just like a muddy puddle that you would have seen after a rainstorm. I just want to throw one more into it. I want to go lower dose and finer. So if you started to have that kind of thought in your head after playing with your coffee, there we go. See how it's just thin and it's just this watery kind of line that's just coming through. It's not expanding. It's a very long strand and it just stays like this the whole time. All right, this is the perfect example of super fine coffee. If you're getting this, you aren't extracting coffee properly. You have to go coarser. You can see that the flow of the water is not changing through there at all. Doesn't matter what happens, it just stays that same stream all the way through. Now it's starting to pulse because water's going through, it's getting a little bit through that muddy sediment layer at the bottom, but it's doing it in sort of batches. There you go, 51 seconds. There you go, you can see a huge amount of channeling happening there. It has expanded. It's made a big crack actually in here. Look at that, it's soft, it's sloppy, and it pulled away from the edge of the basket there very easily. So in that one there, we went finer and I underdosed. And I thought that we wanted to slow down the coffee, and we did that. But you can see because it was so fine, it was one thin stream the whole way. It expanded rapidly and became this sloppy mess on the top, which means that there's no consistency of that flow of water through the coffee puck. So there's 4 defects you could encounter when you're doing your coffee extractions and your puck preparation. Now, I'm going to assume that you've got well-aged coffee, something below 21 days, and it's not super fresh, because there are other issues that are very different to very old coffee as well. So if you've got super aged coffee, some of these things will be exaggerated and some of them won't even happen at all. You won't get a floating puck, you won't get the expansion with old coffee. Anyway, that's for another time. So hopefully that's given you some information on what to look for in coffee pucks. After you finish your extraction, take it out, have an assessment, touch it, feel it, get a good understanding of what's happening, and then start to create a memory of that puck to what the extraction looked like. You can use your time to measure and understand when it starts to drip and whether it's pale and blonding at the end, and you'll start to get a database of being much better at reading a coffee puck and getting a better espresso. Thanks very much. If you've got any questions, please pop them in the comments below. I'm happy to answer those ones. I'm sure there's going to be a ton of them. What other issues do you face? Please let us know. I'd love to know what they are, and hopefully we can answer those in another video. All right, thanks very much for watching. If you haven't yet subscribed, please do. We'll catch you next time. Cheers.